champion is clad in big orange.
The pitch. Swing and a miss. That's the ball game. The national champion is clad in big orange.
Summit and Destiny have met 7 times before. Tonight is number 8.
Tennessee Volunteers have wrapped up an SEC outright regular season title.
The SEC runs through Rocky Top. Tennessee wins the SEC regular season crown for the 2nd consecutive season.
The 1-0.
In the air, right center field. Bronx on the move. Won't get there. Tennessee walks it off.
It's a mismatch. Deep three. Come on now. And Dalton connect. Probably Draghi this time. Indeed. And New Hampshire. Down the middle. Got it on the fly. It's high and again. And he's going to take it. Touchdown, Tennessee.
How much fun is this?
Man, Rocky Top. College football at its absolute best.
This is college athletics at its absolute best. Not feeling great this morning, but hey, it happens to everybody. It happened to Alabama too. We've already got Tennessee football 247 tuning in. He said, "I said it's sad to be a Tennessee Vol," and you know what? It kind of is today. But I'm Michael with my co-host Skylar. Skylar, how you doing today, man?
Well, aside from the football that was played yesterday by some horrendous outings by many teams, it wasn't just our boys. I would like to say that we are still on a boat coming up to Vol Navy for the Florida/Alabama games. That's going to be fun. That's where I'm at now. You can kind of see the captain's steering wheel over here. It's going to be a good time. We're still having a good time despite not being able to celebrate last night. But either way, we are here. We're rocking. Remote location. So if the internet goes down, I'm sorry, guys, but Michael can carry the load. But we're here. We're rocking. And it's Gator Hate Week. That's all I can kind of think about right now, to kind of keep my spirits positive, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. As Robert tuned in and said, what a crazy day. Not just of SEC football, man, but college football in general. Just upsets all over the place in what was supposed to be a fairly boring week. But, those weeks are always the best weeks. But just a heads up, guys, due to Skylar being on location, I'm not going to have a bunch of the overlays and stuff like I normally do, just trying to keep the connection as good as we can together. So just bear with us on that today. But we got a loaded show once again for you. We are going to, unfortunately, recap the game from last night in segment 1. Segment 2, we've got a guest coming on the show. It is Daniel from the Gator Truth Podcast. Going to do a little bit of a preview segment for the Florida game. We're going to have our pick segment, as we always do in segment 3, before we give our upset picks of the week. Unfortunately, this week, Jake is out of pocket, so we will not have Rakin with Jake this week, but I believe, Skylar, he went 3-2 this weekend, so not the 4-1 that he has been, but still a winning week. So putting some money in the pockets. So without further ado, though, I'm going to give you our show sponsor, and that is Chris Smith Insurance. As a homeowner, Chris Smith was once let down by an insurance company. So he decided to start his own agency where instead of feeling like a big company is fighting against you, you'll know that your agent is fighting for you. All insurance is not equal. Trust Chris Smith Insurance. You can call 865-272-3387 for all of your insurance needs. And Chris, we really appreciate you being our show sponsor. Chris has been there pretty much since day one for us, and we absolutely appreciate everything that he does. So, Skylar, we got unfortunately we got a game that we got to talk about, but I guess before we do that, I'm going to give you our segment 1 sponsor, which is Optimal Asbestos Services, your trusted environmental consulting firm in Knoxville, Tennessee. State licensed and insured, we specialize in asbestos air quality management for commercial buildings and homes. You can contact Jeff Mole at 865-223-3297 or on the web at optimalasbestosservices.com. So, Skylar, what are your initial thoughts about last night's game in Fayetteville, Arkansas?
My initial thoughts is there is a blueprint to beat this Tennessee team. I went on, I believe it was Hogs on the Hill podcast. If I'm mistaken, I'm so sorry. But I was on an Arkansas podcast earlier this week, and I asked them what defense they run. And they said about a 4-2-5, every now and again a 4-3. Never once. I specifically asked them if they run a 3-down front, and they said no. And what did we see all night last night? A 3-down front.
Yeah.
With disguising coverages. Something that NC State did to begin the season, and it worked. And now every team is doing it, and we are not adapting to it. It is very much frustrating. If Nico was wearing a jersey that said Milton on the back of it yesterday, I highly feel like he would have been booed on the field last night for, overthrows, decision-making, holding on to the ball just way too long. He definitely looked like a freshman. I ain't trying to be a critic or anything. I'm just trying to wrap my head around what's going on right now. The second half of Oklahoma, everybody said it was because we dialed it back, and I really believe that, and I'm an idiot for believing that because I think that's just how our offense is, and that's scary, knowing that we finally have a defense to complement our offense, and yet our offense, at least the last two games, really hasn't shown me anything that can win a ball game. That's my initial thoughts. What say you?
Yeah, so I'm kind of the same way there. I thought that in that Oklahoma game, it was the explanation was exactly what it was. We dialed back the offense because the defense was good enough to win us that game, and Tim Banks was just like, "Hey, trust us. As long as y'all don't turn the ball over, we're gonna win this game because we're gonna hold them long enough that we can win this ball game." And don't know if that's completely true after last night. But one thing that I saw last night was a completely different offensive line than we saw against Oklahoma. Against Oklahoma, we were still getting pushed in the run game. We were doing a decent job in pass protection. It wasn't great, but I think that's what's going to be Tennessee's, mantra this year is you're going to be decent enough in pass protection, but the run blocking is going to be good. Last night, we saw an offensive line that for all but two drives of the game, and that being the opening two drives of the second half, was just blown off the ball every single snap. And, we come out in the second half and we scored 2 touchdowns right away, and we did it running the ball. The offensive line was getting great push. Dylan Sampson was hitting the gaps. We were expecting a whole different second half than what we saw. But after those first 2 drives, as soon as Arkansas took the ball down the field and scored after our second touchdown, it was like the wind came out of our sails. Offensive line was getting pushed again, and we couldn't get anything going. So that's a huge concern for me going forward is the way our offensive line looked in that ball game.
Yeah, you got to credit Arkansas too. The game plan they came in with very, very, very strong. They had a belief in their game plan, and they executed it very well. They did a great job staying ahead of the sticks. Another thing I kind of said in the Arkansas podcast earlier this week is, as much as you want to win third downs, against Tennessee, first down is actually the most important down, in my opinion. If you win first down against Tennessee, you get them behind the sticks, it's hard for us to come back from that. And I think Arkansas won first down a lot last night. Now, they didn't win fourth down, and honestly, I'm glad because it could have been an ugly game if they were winning their fourth downs. But, our offense, very first drive, false start to start the series. I believe there was like an illegal man downfield in the second or third play. Yeah. You just can't start a game with penalties. How? Lance Hurd, how are we jumping off? Our defensive lines have been shifting for years. I know you game plan for that. Why are we jumping when they shift? That makes no sense. You're better than that. Be better than that. I don't understand. He did it several times, which really makes me mad because Josh Heupel's whole mantra is if you make a mistake, don't make the same mistake twice. And he did it not twice. He did it 3 times. It's just one of those things where that was frustrating for the offensive line. I agree with you. They came out in the second half, man, scored, got a 3-and-out, and scored again. And I'm like, yeah, we got this in the bag. Like, that's what we needed. And then we didn't. I don't know, man. This was an ugly game. Look, credit to Arkansas. They were bringing about 8 people on every play, it felt like. Nico's got to get the ball out of his hands. He's got to. He's got to. I love that he's trying to read, and I love that he's trying to go from his progressions. But at the end of the day, it is as simple as hitting your flat route or hitting that in route. Yes, it's only 3 yards down the field, but by God, when you got 8 people in your face, you got to get rid of the ball. He didn't do that too well.
And you know what? If you pick up 3 yards on every play, then you're looking at 4th down and 1. And with this offense, man, I absolutely trust that you can pick up a 4th down and 1 on each play. And most of those pass plays, even a little flat route, a slant with our receivers like Brew McCoy, like Chris Brazel, even Squirrel White, just because of how shifty he is, they're gonna pick up some yards after they catch it. So if you pick up 4 and 5 yards and do that each play, man, you can move it down the field. So yeah, Nico's gonna have to start hitting those and not look downfield as much as he is right now. Don't look for that big play. That will come the more that you hit these shorter routes, because then the defense is gonna key on those, do a little play action, then you can hit them over the top. Don't just look for that every single play.
Yeah, Nico, there was about 3 or 4 times, and I can literally go back and do this if I really wanted to. I have plenty of time. There were 3 or 4 replays of like 2nd or 3rd downs when Nico either gets sacked or he's trying to look, for a play down the field. You can see that sky cam, that basically like the quarterback view of the play. And when they rush 7 or 8 guys and you see a slant route, wide open, but Nico's got to take his eyes off the wide receivers and look at the rush, and he's just not. I mean, if he just has another second or so, if he could see that, I mean, it's touchdowns all day long. They ran zero coverage several times last night, and we just didn't read it. And then at the end of the game, I get it. Defense played great all night, and then the time we really needed to step up, but I'm not even going to blame this on the defense. They held a team to 19 points. And with Josh Heupel's offense, you're expected to win if you only give up 19 points. I don't care who you are.
Yeah. So real quick, before we get much into the rest of it, let's clean up the text box just a little bit here. As
let's do it.
Sean tunes in. He says, "What's up, guys? Definitely a crazy day in football yesterday. Hate I had to miss it all. Man, you missed one day. That's for sure. It was a day of football. It didn't really turn out well for Tennessee, man, but a lot of the other teams that lost, man, it was awesome to watch. We got I'm going to come back to one of Tennessee Football 247's comments in just a minute, but he says Josh just needs to put 50 points or more up on every team we play. I disagree with this because our defense this year is good enough that you can put up 30 points and win a game. Last night, 25 points would have won you a game, but we only put up 14 on offense. So I don't feel like we need to put up 50 points or more on every team we play. That would be awesome, but that's not a necessity. And I don't think that this offense against a lot of these teams we're going to play is going to put up 50 points. You might struggle to put up 30 points as we saw last night. We got Justin tuning in. He said offense was horrible. Defense wasn't horrible. But one thing I loved about the defense last night is it was bend, don't break the entire night. I mean, excluding that last touchdown, but you could tell Tennessee was trying to let them score so they could get the ball back. But it was bend, don't break the entire night. They did a fantastic job. Stopped Arkansas on 3 4th downs last night, I believe.
And a missed field goal. Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, your defense gave you every single opportunity in the world to win that game. You just couldn't do it on the offensive side of the ball. So this comment I want to go back to that Tennessee Football 247 chimes in and says, what did we do right against Oklahoma that we didn't do against Arkansas? I'll let you go first on this one, Skylar.
We hit the slant or the deep post route, I guess. I mean, that's literally the only difference in the games. Defensively, I don't see a lot of differences in Oklahoma and Arkansas's games other than the fact that we had our explosive play. We played like crap against Oklahoma, and we played like crap against Arkansas, and it bit us in the butt. I believe I told you last week, I think that Oklahoma was going to be our worst offensive output of the season. And then I'll be darned if they didn't come out and literally do worse. I don't know what we did right, because I don't think we did really much right against Oklahoma other than the defense. It's literally the same storyline 2 weeks. Well, I guess not including the bye week, 2 weeks in a row, 2 games in a row, right? And except the defense just couldn't save you from this one. I mean, it is. I don't know. I don't have an answer. Terrible football the last 2 games. I'm just glad that we were able to get one of the wins, because we could be looking at a whole different season if we started out 0-2 in SEC play.
Yeah, so I've got a couple of things. One of them I already touched on already. So last night against Arkansas, you saw an offensive line that got absolutely zero push on the run game, except for 2 drives in the ball game. And towards the beginning of that Oklahoma game, they didn't get much push, but the more that they tried it, and some of those slants and stuff that they hit against Oklahoma also helped open up that run game that it didn't open up last night, because you didn't hit those.
Didn't have the ball.
Yeah,
you're not even in rhythm. I mean, the thing with Arkansas is, I mean, what's crazy is I want to know if they watched the podcast, because I literally said it. I said, look, one, the Arkansas guys, bless their hearts, they were like, oh, we just don't have it this year. And I'm like, guys, y'all got to have a little bit more faith in your team, because I do think it's possible that y'all can beat us. And I said, and here's why. I said, one, Nico's only played 4 quarters of football once this year, and he didn't even look good in the 3rd and 4th quarter. I said, so he's playing football for 4 quarters against Arkansas for sure, right? And then secondly, hold the ball. And that's exactly what Arkansas freaking did. The first quarter, did we only run 3 plays? I believe Arkansas had the ball for the first – it was like a 15-minute to 5-minute time of possession ratio with like 9 minutes left to go in the second quarter.
I think you're right. I think Tennessee only had the ball once and then ran those 3 plays in the first quarter.
You can't that was a terrible game. It was so bad. We had a chance to really assert ourselves in the league and the conference, and you choke just as bad as Alabama and Missouri did. It is pretty wild stuff. And USC as well. So.
Yeah, so here's my other thing is last night, the defense did their job for the majority of the time. They bent, but they didn't break. You only gave up 19 points. But here's my question.
I disagree with that as well. You're right. You're right in the fact that they bent and didn't break. But, oh, my God, did they pick up any 3rd down in the world they wanted to in the first and second quarter.
All right, and that's getting kind of into my point here. Why did we go back to a zone defense when – these guys, granted, you've played Oklahoma's the best competition you've played, but in every single game you played this year, you've gone man defense, and you've been able to really lock up guys for the most part. Have you given up some plays? Yes. Are you going to give up plays like that throughout the year? Yes. But last night you saw so many times when you're playing that zone defense and people just didn't know who they were picking up.
They didn't know coverages. They didn't know who they were picking up. They were confused. I mean, Arian Carter, bless his heart, 3 plays in the first half. He didn't freaking know. Like, he literally didn't. There was a crossing pattern, and they literally pointed this out on the live coverage. And I think it was Keelan Peely stayed in man, and Arian Carter just completely pulled off his man. At that point, we're doubling a guy, and the wide receiver still beat the double coverage. And then you got a free runner. I think that was on a 3rd and 14, too, which kind of really urged my – oh, my God, dude. Like, just confused. It's a bad game. I don't like to talk about it. I hate talking about games. Like, it's one thing to lose, and I get it. But I just didn't feel like we were prepared to play after a bye week, and that infuriates me.
Yes, especially because Josh Heupel at Tennessee has not lost after a bye week. He's always been fully prepared. He's only lost 1 game after a bye in his career, and that's why last week I was on the horse of I am so confident in this game that Tennessee is going to win because it is Josh Heupel after a bye week. And last night, they just didn't look prepared. And then we hadn't even talked about the part that, I can take a loss. I can take a loss at any time. I sleep on it. I'll get over it the next morning. But the comment from Robert here is exactly the thing that infuriates me the most about the game last night. How do you not take a shot to the end zone on the final play because all right, I don't care if the ball is incomplete there. I don't care if you throw an interception, but I can go in on this. Yeah, you have to throw the ball to the end zone to give yourself a shot at a win in the ball game. But instead,
who did that look like?
It looked like Joe Milton.
Mm-hmm.
It looked exactly like Joe Milton against Ole Miss in 2021 when he had to come in at the end. You absolutely have to give yourself a shot at the end zone. You cannot, on a fourth down play with 6 seconds on the clock, 30 yards out, just run the ball, and you don't even get to the first down marker. I mean, the game was over anyway, but you don't even get to the first down marker if there was time on the clock. You don't take a shot to the end zone. That is what infuriated me most about the end of that game.
I just got a text from my pops. He said, your frustration is very apparent on the podcast. What do you want me to say, dude? Like, it's all good, honestly. It's Gator Hater Week. I'm done recapping this stupid game because, honestly, maybe if we can turn this into a positive, we just smacked ourselves in the face to wake the hell up and realize that we're not there yet. Yeah. And we go back to work. And because I think that comment was kind of shared with Dylan Sampson, if I remember seeing an article earlier, that Dylan Sampson was like, man, we might have just taken the bye week off a little bit, laxed and maybe thought that we didn't have to do as much, got a little complacent, thought that we were, one of the top teams in the nation. And look, it's okay to think that you're one of the top teams in the nation. That doesn't mean you get to take days off or think that you get to skip something or whatever because you think you're the best. I mean, it's really quite the opposite. You need to be doing better, than everybody else. And I'm hoping, one thing I've been kind of saying, at least on my Facebook forums, because my God, Alabama fans, after losing to Vanderbilt, had a heyday after we lost, which I thought was hilarious. To think they even had, like, the audacity to comment on our loss when they lost to Vanderbilt. Anyways, is, Tennessee and Josh Heupel in particular, they lose a road game at night. Happens every year. Wasn't hard to see this one coming with it being back-to-back road games. I get it. We had the bye week in there, and I was hoping that was what was going to break it up. I was hoping that was going to help us. But at the end of the day, this road game at night for the second time in a row, it wasn't a big shock to me, I guess. As frustrated as I am, it's because I'm frustrated that we can't break the narrative. This is year 4 under Josh Heupel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're still doing the same stuff. Like that is it's frustrating. Luckily, we were ranked number 4. So taking a loss here, we're still in the top 10. It's great. But there's no room for error anymore. You got to win out. You got to win out.
Yeah, and that's another thing is, with the 12-team playoff now, this one loss does not cripple you like it would have in the past with the 4-team playoff. But you said it exactly right. You cannot mess up again. You pretty much have to run the table now, and that includes Alabama and Georgia, which is going to be hard if you want to make the playoffs.
You have to because the SEC is so tight now. I mean, you looked at Ole Miss and you looked at a lot of the other top teams. God dang it. Missouri, I'm blanking. Alabama taking the loss to Georgia taking the loss to Alabama. You've seen all these top tier SEC teams taking a loss, and you're like, okay, well, they're kind of backseat for now. It's Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, and who else? Well, now it's Texas and then who else? And everybody having a loss basically in the conference. I don't see a team going undefeated now. Texas is going to take a loss.
Texas is going to lose to Georgia in a couple of weeks.
I think they could lose to Oklahoma. All right, and I know Justin's not going to like. Yeah. I know Justin's not going to like that, but that rivalry somehow, it doesn't matter who how much better the roster is on one team to another. It's just that rivalry. I mean, if Texas don't watch themselves, the way this season is playing out, Texas could absolutely lose to Oklahoma. And yes, I'm taking a trend from everything else and putting it in that one. But how do you not at this point? I mean, we literally seen Vanderbilt take down number 1 Alabama after they just beat Georgia.
Yeah.
What? I mean, like, no shot. Michigan loses to whoever they played.
Michigan lost to Washington. USC lost to Minnesota.
I think it was 5 or 6 top 25 teams upset fashion took a loss. Now they call Missouri an upset, but Texas A&M was favored in that game. Missouri, in my opinion, looked the worst. I think they really did get exposed. They have been overrated for quite some time. I was hopeful that maybe we just haven't seen the best version of Missouri. No, they're just trash. They're absolutely garbage. I think they got beat. I don't know. I wasn't able to watch football yesterday because we've been on the river, but I think it was like 45-10 or something. What was the score of that game?
41-7 was the final in that game.
Thank you. Yeah, I knew it wasn't competitive. My pops was sending me updates on that game. He was like, "Man, it's crazy." And no, it just what a weekend for a week that wasn't really supposed to have a lot of storylines. It sure delivered in a big way.
Yeah, we are still waiting on Daniel to come in. He's supposed to be in here at 2:30 Central. So a couple more comments. Justin's exactly right on this too. Landon Jackson proved last night why he may be very highly drafted. He was all over the place last night. He was hard to block. It kind of looked like James Pierce Jr., to be honest. Just creating havoc. And speaking of James Pierce, we finally got to see James Pierce come out and make some plays last night, but it's just what we talked about last week, I believe. These teams have realized you cannot have two guys focusing on James Pierce Jr. because the other guys are going to come out there and take his spot, creating havoc. Last night, he got a lot of one-on-one matchups. He won a lot of them. Did he get to the quarterback every time? No. But to be able to see him get some of his last night, that is a big plus going forward. Let's see. Robert, this was in response to us talking about Nico. He says, I get it. The Vols didn't play well, but, man, you can't end the game like that. And then
he's a freshman.
Yeah, he is.
He's not a fifth-year senior. He will learn.
Yeah, then you got Justin chiming back in. Milton taught him everything that he knows when it comes
and
to
there's
the stuff.
There's the fifth-year senior that was doing the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, we'll learn from it. We'll get better for sure. Let's talk, I guess, real quickly because we don't really recap the rest of the week. But real quickly, just the rest of these games, man. I mean, obviously Vanderbilt, little brother, taking care of business against Alabama. And in a way they did it, didn't seem fluky, which is the weird thing.
Yeah. So the thing that I liked most about that game was, and they mentioned it on the broadcast, this didn't happen every single possession, but most possessions when Vanderbilt got the ball first, they just ran a basic, like read option, RPO type option there to see what Alabama was going to do on defense. And then the offensive coordinator reacted to that and ran plays to counter that right there, and it worked. But the big thing was you kept Jalen Milroe off the field. Vanderbilt had the ball in that game for 42 minutes and 17 seconds. I mean, unbelievable. And Diego Pavia, man, he's him. He is good. Now Vanderbilt is going to lose games this year still, but I think they're going to give pretty much everybody they play this season a lot of toughness in that game. They're not going to make it easy.
Yeah, I didn't really watch the game other than to watch the final 2 minutes of them kneeling it out. But I did see like some updates and scoring, but it was like anytime Vanderbilt really needed to get a touchdown to kind of stretch the lead, they did it. Which is why I bring up the fact that it wasn't fluky. Like, I'm thinking weird stuff's got to happen, which it did. Don't get me wrong. But, like, Alabama you thought was making a comeback. It was like 23-21 or something like that. I can't remember. I didn't watch it. But then what does Vanderbilt do? Go right down the field, throw a freaking 45-yard dime pass, and get another 2-score lead. And they did that, it seemed like all game long. And to score 40 on Alabama's defense, that's wild. Now, I mean, if you're Alabama, you got to start wondering about your defense. I mean, you've given up 30-something points to Georgia, and they almost came back and won. They might even give up 40. I can't remember. And then you turn around and give up that many to Vanderbilt in a loss. Where's Alabama's defense right now? And are they coming back or are they gone for the season?
Yeah, exactly. And Robert asked, Which team had the worst loss yesterday? Was it Mizzou getting blown out by A&M?
It's
Bama losing to
it's
unranked Vandy, or the Vols losing to unranked Arkansas? And I'm
going to say Bama to Vandy. That's a pretty bad one. Being ranked number 1 and losing to a 2-2 Vandy team, of which I just think the level and caliber of a team, that's the worst of the 3 teams, Arkansas, Vandy, and A&M. I think Arkansas is very much equivalent to A&M and Oklahoma, and I would even say Missouri, but Missouri just got housed. But I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they played Kyle Field. Kyle Field does have an effect, and if you're not prepared to play, they will jump on you pretty quickly. But if you're talking tier of team, Vanderbilt's the worst of these 3 opponents, and then you're Bama, you're ranked number 1 in the nation. I think that's the worst. Missouri is undoubtedly the ugliest, but I think Bama's the worst.
So I agree with you as far as tier of teams and all that goes, that Vandy is probably, or Bama losing to Vandy is probably the worst, but I am going to go Mizzou getting blown out by A&M, because you just looked bad in that game. You did not look like you should have even shown up for that game at all. That's how bad the game looked. So that's why I'm going to go with Mizzou getting blown out by A&M as the worst loss yesterday.
And I don't disagree really. Arkansas and Vanderbilt rushed the fields. That was cool to see somebody rushing the field against us when we haven't really won anything in a while. But that was something.
It makes me feel better.
Why did Arkansas rush the field? I mean, let's think about this. Arkansas has literally beaten Tennessee the last 3 or 4 times we played. Why did they rush the field?
That's a great question. I don't know why Arkansas rushed the field. Made no sense to me. I saw them lining up before that last play. It made no sense to me why they rushed the field.
No, because I kind of smirked and I'm like, oh, we made it. And then I'm like, wait a minute. Not really, because it's not like we had this towering win streak over Arkansas. It's not like this was to make the SEC championship or anything, because let's face it, Arkansas has already lost 2 games. I mean, it's not like this game. I mean, it's a great win, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel like it was rush the field worthy. I mean, Vanderbilt, I understand, because they've never beaten a number 1 team in the nation, I don't think. So
they showed the stat.
They were wild, but whatever. I'm just being salty.
Yeah, they were 0-60 all time against top 5 opponents, and that was their very
good
first
for Clark
win.
Lee, man.
Oh yeah, he was so excited after that. You could see it on his face. And a bright side for Vanderbilt, they actually rushed the field and didn't just go down on the field in a single file line like they did last time. So that was good to see that they're improving on that side of it too.
All right, I got a question for you and for the chat, and thank you guys for coming in here. Who did it better? All right, Vandy fans throwing it in the Cumberland, or Vol fans throwing it in the Tennessee River?
Do you want me to answer?
I mean, yeah. Want to know who did it better?
It was Tennessee.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
But I will say this. One thing that I did like, because I saw some of the fans marching it down Broadway and taking it to the Cumberland. You also had police escorting you down to the river. So I did love that part of it.
But here's the thing. I think Tennessee did it better because we had a dude literally surfing the goalpost out of the stadium. Like he was standing on it, surfing it, while everybody else was carrying it. I thought that was like, that picture will be hung up forever. Icon, like probably in Peyton Manning's room. Like I don't know. Thought that was pretty cool.
So Justin chimes in. He says Vandy because they did it with 1/100th of the fans there. So
that's actually probably factual. That's a good point.
That's fair.
So, Tennessee football 247 corrected us or whatnot. Said it was 42-10. I guess Missouri kicked a field goal late just to not cover any spread whatsoever. But let's see. Motivated. I can't read these names. You're gonna have to help me out here. Said trenches matter. Pittman gets a contract extension. Yes, good for Pittman too, because man, we really thought that Pittman was going as well. But man, he's done some great things. I think hiring Petrino was absolutely the right move, bringing him back to Arkansas. Motivated, dedicated. There we go. I think bringing Petrino back was probably a genius move, and it's paying off for him.
Yeah. Sorry. We do still have some Facebook people that for some reason is popping up Facebook user instead of your name. So when you make a comment, would you, if you don't mind, please put your name out next to it. We don't know what's going on with that. I'm going to have to try to talk with Streamlabs support this week to find out who it is that's saying that. But if you don't mind, just put your name out next to your comment if you're on Facebook. Just not sure exactly what's going on with that. But Skylar, you got anything else before we move on and talk a little bit of Florida matchup this week?
Oh, dude, I would love nothing more than to think about the next game.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. So our segment 2 sponsor is P&L Business Services. We know firsthand that getting your monthly reporting, invoicing, bill pay, taxes, and other essential service or business services right is critical. That's why at P&L Business Services, we go beyond bookkeeping by providing you with everything you need in your back office so that you can have your time back and the peace of mind to do what you love most, which is building your business. Behind every successful business is a great bookkeeper. Just contact PNLBusinessServices.com. So just on this right here, put a .com at the end, and Miss Leanne and all the crew there can take care of all of your needs. So we do have a guest that is going to join us now, that being Daniel from the Gator Truth Podcast. Daniel, man, glad that you can join us. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me, Mike. Good to see you again, and nice to meet you, Skylar.
Nice to see you, Daniel. How we doing?
Doing well.
Right. So, but before we get into the Tennessee matchup, how is Florida feeling after the first portion of the season? Because it was the talk of the off season that Florida's got the most brutal schedule. They've pretty much every game is a must win, and so far, Florida has come out of it 3-2 right now, coming into Knoxville.
Yep, that is true, and I know you and I have spoken before on it, Mike, where I said I really think you got to be 6-1 going into the second bye week. Now, with that said, it's been a very interesting start to the season. Getting blown out by Miami to start the season, then of course have Samford, where DJ Lagway plays the entire game due to Graham Mertz being concussion protocol and really showing out. Then getting blown out by A&M, which the final score was much closer than the game actually was. I mean, it was 20-0 at the half. At one point, it was 33-7, so it was never really close. Go and face arguably, I mean, after this week now, probably what is the worst team in the SEC at Mississippi State. And that's a game where the final score doesn't show how close it was at times, with Mississippi State not scoring on the goal line once when it mattered, once towards the end, but still a good performance by Florida there, because no matter how good or bad the opponent, Billy Napier's teams have not been great on the road. And then, of course, bye week, and then last night get that big win over UCF, which we'll see how good UCF is at the end of the year. They might be a really great team and great win we're celebrating, or looking at their schedule, this may be a UCF team that ends up 3-9 or something, because they face, I looked this morning for the first time, I think they only face one team in the bottom half of the Big 12 standings as it stands now the rest of the way, and that's Cincinnati, whose 2 losses were to Pitt, who's 5-0, and a 1 loss, I believe, on the road, 1-point loss to Texas Tech, who currently leads the Big 12. So who knows? So that win is still, I mean, it's a good win. You don't want UCF bragging over you. It's just a question of, have we gotten over our problem with winning teams? I know you and I talked about in the preseason, Billy Napier's not great against teams that are finish over 500. I think the number right now is 3-14. If I were to count, or 3-15 if we were to count Miami, who looks like they're going to finish with a winning season, and the ACC officiating will make sure of that, it seems like, the last 2 weeks. And then A&M, of course, looking like they definitely will end up in that winning season. So it's very curious. Billy Napier's definitely taking care of teams he should have, but in the better teams has not shown it yet. So that's just a brief, I guess, talk about how Gator fans are feeling. You've got the Gator fans that see, well, we got a 2-game win streak. We're good. Everyone's just freaking out. And the other people are like, hey, the 2 best teams we faced, the games weren't even close. So coming into Knoxville, this is actually going to be a big indicator for which side is kind of leaning in the right direction, at least as it stands now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Skylar. I was just going to say that, this game is going to be a big swing game for both Tennessee and for Florida, because Florida, you're seeing what direction the rest of your season is going to go, because you still got the toughest stretch yet to come. And like you said, we talked about earlier this year, you really want to go in, if you're Florida, 6-1 before that second bye week, because, that last part of the season, it's in no particular order. You got Georgia, Texas, Ole Miss, LSU, and then Florida State. Now, Florida State's not anywhere near as good as everyone expected coming in, so that one doesn't look as bad now. But still, that's a 4-game stretch. That's just absolutely brutal. And Tennessee, especially after yesterday, it's a gut check moment. It's like, okay, is Tennessee really as good as advertised, or is that game against Arkansas one that unfortunately we might see a little bit more of that popping back up towards the end of the season?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I can say from a Florida perspective, I was sitting next to my brother last night and a buddy of ours, and they had the Tennessee game up on a phone, and we're watching like in between plays at, they're in the swamp, or after the game we finished before you guys were sitting on the bus that takes us back to our parking lot, and they got it on, and I'm watching the last drive for Tennessee. And when they lost, I said, as much as I'm a Florida fan, you guys are rivals. I want to see the lot, be like, woohoo, my rival lost. I'm also like, not the week before we play Tennessee. I don't need them more focused coming home, being pissed off. And now we've got to, we're coming into a team, like you said, that has a gut check moment. And so it's like, we didn't need more motivation. I would have rather come in under the radar and you guys feeling, overconfident, not trying to talk trash. I don't like to do too much of that before a game, but kind of like last season, where I think you guys kind of came into Gainesville a little overconfident, and we were able to take advantage of that. I don't know if we'll be able to do it this season, but
I mean, at the end of the day, brother, you still have a Gator on the helmet, and you're still Florida. And for some reason, no matter how good or how bad we are, y'all tend to have the better results every time. So if we are ever in the mindset of thinking that we should win or, have this in the bag per se against Florida, we're going to have another loss cooking. Look, this team is really frustrating. I was telling Michael this earlier. We have always had a pretty bad defense, but we've had a really great offense. And I almost feel like this year it's completely flipped on its head. Like, I feel like our defense is probably the best in the nation. Even with the lost Arkansas, I feel like our defense still played lights out. But our offense just can't freaking score right now. I don't know what's going on. The first 3 games of the season, you're scoring 70, 50, and 60 respectfully. And I get it. That's lesser opponents. But, like, the assignments are still there. Like, the blocking schemes are still there. And it's like now all of a sudden we hit this 3-man front, and we can't do anything about it. And so I'm curious, do you think Florida, it may pull a move like Arkansas where they don't necessarily run a 3-man front a ton, but could you see your defense maybe adapting and adjusting, kind of game planning for a 3-down front for Tennessee specifically this weekend?
It would be one of the first times that I've seen us really in 3 years game plan specifically for an opponent. Just being honest, I'd love to come here and say like, yeah, we're going to do it. Not really, but I will say on the other side, we were facing in a UCF team. And again, how their early season schedule worked out, it's kind of hard to say whether this was indicative or not, but number 2 in the nation in rushing yards per per game coming in with 326. We held them to 108. So I could see us trying to make adjustments. Now, the question is, how much of that was just the talent differential between, a UCF and a Florida, and can we do that? But do I think we're specifically going to move to possibly a 3-down front? I don't see us specifically doing that. Could it happen? Yes, but I haven't seen us like specifically change I don't want to say change our full system, but do stuff out of the norm, depending on what hurts opponents throughout the Billy Napier era. And we've had 3 different defensive play callers in those 3 seasons. So
yes,
that since there's not that consistency, I think that also unfortunately has hampered the defense, but they played great last night. So definitely lots of credit to them for that.
Well, if they don't run a 3-down front, I immediately feel a lot better about this football game. For some reason, man, our offense just not been able to figure it out against that type of look. But no, I was just curious. I was talking to some folks from Arkansas, and they literally changed their defensive scheme just for us because of what they seen against Oklahoma and what they seen against NC State, and it worked. I mean, so it's hard for me to be mad about it. I feel like we need to find a way to adapt to it and scheme plays around that. But no, I mean, if you're Florida, if it's working for you, the last couple of games y'all seem to find a rhythm. I wouldn't say that it may not be a smart thing to change it. May just roll with whatever's working. But I was just curious. Like I said, I seen Arkansas do it. Didn't know if maybe that could be something in the works for Florida. So
yeah. Now I will say, I'll give your Vols a key to the game. I said this Mississippi State, and I actually said this to our college huddle partner from UCF. Florida's not been great if teams run up tempo. Even the Mississippi State game, every scoring drive they had, it was, we're running no huddle up tempo, and we're just going to run it right at you. And I was surprised UCF didn't do as much up tempo. Now, granted, Mississippi State, me and the guy I was sitting with were actually joking at the game. I'm like, the best defense that we have right now. Now, granted, this is a little bit different from last night where we played well, but the best defense we had was every time they would start doing that no huddle running and we couldn't stop it, was they'd get a holding penalty or the ball would have to be respotted. And once that rhythm was broken and communication, you had more time for communication, which the Gators worked on in the bye week. But with that said, our weakness has been what Heupel's been good at times, and that's up tempo run game. So I'm very curious to see, can that defense we saw last night, come against you guys, or will Heupel see what has been a weakness for this team for a while now and try and exploit that, since you guys do have a very, very good run game from what I understand.
Yeah, our run game is definitely our bread and butter, and and we talked about it earlier. We really feel like that's one of the reasons why Tennessee lost last night, is because that you had 2 drives in the game where the run game actually got going, offensive line got great push. Other than that, the offensive line just got blown up the entire game. So, we'll kind of get to our Tennessee loses if, Florida loses if keys towards the end of the hour here. But absolutely, if Tennessee doesn't run the ball, then Florida has got a fantastic chance to win this game. But question I have for you is Graham Mertz. Last year, he was statistically one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC, even on a team that overall didn't have much success. This year, I haven't dove into the numbers as much as I have, but I do know that his numbers have been down this year compared to last year. You did lose a great receiver in Ricky Pearsall. You also don't have Travis Etienne to kind of counter in the run game as well. Is it just maybe the talent at receivers isn't as good this year, so he's struggling some, or what is the whole difference there as far as Graham Mertz's numbers from last year to this year?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say some of that Miami just really had the flyer on Graham Mertz as far as what Florida likes to do, which is a lot of short passing game. Don't want them to throw it too far or past the line of scrimmage, lots of horizontal stuff rather than vertical. And when you do that, you're going to have a great completion percentage, which is what he had last year. He's upwards of 75 or something percent, but also 80% of his passes were 9 yards or less down the field. And that includes, the little pop pass jet sweeps that are like, well, since I threw the ball up, there's a completion, rather than, if he just handed it off, it doesn't count. And earlier on in the season, the Gators were trying to get him to hit balls downfield. There were 2 plays in particular on deep posts against Miami that if he had better deep ball accuracy, those are both touchdowns. Maybe that game is changed. Instead, he throws it well behind the direction of what the receiver's running, and it just ended up being incompletions because of that. But over the last few games now, again, some of that is what stock do I want to put into a Mississippi State defense that was kind of poor, or a UCF 106th ranked before last night pass defense, where he did do a lot of horizontal. He hit 1 or 2 balls down the field, not the best, thrown balls, but they did get down there. He's had some good percentages, but the last 2 games, I think a lot of that was, let's just get him what he's comfortable with, which is not too much down the field balls, but make it work. Whereas earlier on in the season, there were an A&M and a Mike Elko, a Mario Cristobal Miami team that pretty much took away what he liked. As far as weapons, losing Pearsall has hurt, but we also have Trey Wilson, who is pretty good. The problem is he's got injured a few games ago, hasn't really played since, I believe, Samford. And he's dynamic. However, we have found, and this guy didn't play last night due to injury either, but hopefully he'll be ready to go for Tennessee. I think he participated in warmups and then didn't play. Aiden Mizell, who a lot of fans were wondering, a 4-star guy in the 2023 class. A lot of fans were wondering why he wasn't playing too much. And then against Mississippi State, has 2 amazing touchdowns where he caught the ball and made guys miss, outran everybody. I mean, this guy was a track star in high school. 2 great touchdowns that got called back. One because his elbow hit the ground right as he was, catching the ball. But again, refs let it play, and of course called it back on replay. Is the right thing to do, but the catch and run was just phenomenal afterwards. And then one where there was we'll call it controversial, blindside block, where it appears that perhaps the defender was looking at Montrell Johnson when he hit him. Either way, after those, we're talking great movement with the ball, after catch and run. And so I think we could see a lot, or back him. I don't think it's necessarily the weapons around him. As far as Trevor Etienne going to Georgia, I do think that's hurt the running game a little bit, but Jaden Ball, who has come on the last few games, who's a true freshman, Trayon Webb, who missed last night, who's been injured. He's a true sophomore. He's done well. Montrell Johnson at times has had some highlight plays, like the long touchdown against Miami, and then against A&M is 7 carries for -7 yards. So which really that's been Montrell Johnson's time at UF, where there are games he's phenomenal and games where he kind of disappears. However, I think there is better depth as far as guys who can come on and provide good carries and get stuff behind them. So I think there's weapons there. I think the frustration, and I know you and I had talked about this in the preseason as well, the frustration is just Billy Napier being stuck in his play caller ways, and there are certain ways that fans can tell just by formation if it's a run or a pass based on tendency. And if we can see that in the stands, and one guy actually made a chart of, here's what it is, and if we're in this formation 80% of the time it's a run, and if we're like this 60+% of the time it's a pass. And if we can do that, that other teams, with all the analysts that are in college football, defense coordinators, they do that as well. The problem is, can a team do what Miami did and say, we're going to play the tendencies and be right all the time and really shut down that offense? Or is it going to be something like UCF where that secondary is just not up to the task and guys are going to take a short pass and run for 20, 30 yards? So to say that, to go back to the Graham Mertz question, I think it's a little bit of just teams figuring him out more and more at Florida. And then other times Florida trying to force him to do things he's not good at. But that's why we've seen more DJ Lagway, which I'm sure there's going to be a question, but if not, I'll bring it up. He's our, of course, five-star plus true freshman quarterback who threw for a top 10 performance against Samford of any Florida quarterback in a game ever as far as yards. He's for Mississippi State and for the game last night against UCF. Dude plays every three series. It's like series 1 and 2 are Graham Mertz. Series 3 is DJ Lagway. In his last 4 series that he's had, they ended up being, well, besides going extra conservative at the end of the game last night, but of his real, we're trying to score. He led 2 90-plus yard drives against Mississippi State. And then first drive last night was a 3-play, 47-yard drive for a touchdown. We ran the ball, got like a yard, throws a 46-yard strike that is called down at the 1, runs it in for a touchdown the next play, and then gets the ball with less than 2 minutes to go in the half, drives it down to a field goal. Arguably, had we not called a QB draw, that would have ran out the time. If we would have tried passing, possibly we get 7, but still, he's been very efficient moving the ball as well. So it's going to be interesting, the dynamic between the quarterbacks. If we see Mertz struggle again, does Billy Napier break from his every third drive, or does he just say, here's our process and we're going to do it, as Billy Napier put it, no matter the result? So it's an interesting time in Gainesville, to say the least.
No, that's a good breakdown. And I was kind of curious because I haven't been watching Florida enough to study how he's been doing the 2 quarterback system there. But I was kind of curious on how he was handling that because, I mean, I've always been the guy to think that if you're playing 2 quarterbacks, you really don't have a quarterback. But it seems like it's been working. And so, I mean, if it's working, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think it also allows the fans in a way, not that Billy Napier cares about what the fans want to do or think they should do, but I think at least Billy knows that he, whether it's promises made to Graham Mertz or maybe Graham Mertz is the guy, but they're allowing the fans to see what the future is in store for the Gator fans.
Right.
With DJ Lagway. So, no, that's a really good rundown. Thank you so much for that. Michael, you mentioned earlier about doing the whole, Gator wins if they do this and Tennessee wins if they do this. You ready for that segment or whatnot?
Yeah, let's go for it. So our question to you, Daniel, is Florida wins this game if they do what?
Well, the 2 things I would say is, first one is stop the run, because obviously if we're not stopping that Tennessee run game, it's going to be a long night, especially if you get the 100,000 Neyland going behind there. I'll be honest, this will be my 4th trip to Neyland, and my only victory was 2020. So I guess Tennessee fans may be saying, oh, please come, you're a good luck charm. When we've had a full stadium, you've lost every time. But at some point, I've got to see a victory, right? But anyways, no, definitely, I would say first, stop the run, and second, not play as much to our tendencies. And what I mean by that is what we saw against Miami, where essentially Miami could just say, oh, they're in pistol. We got an 80% chance this is a run. We'll sell out. Or, hey, our first third down. This is a good example of what I mean by not play to our tendencies. We don't like throwing the ball, and generally on third down past the sticks. It's something that killed me with Jim McElwain, and Billy Napier's mentor is Jim McElwain. So we see a lot of where it's 3rd and 9, for example, you'll see a lot of 7-8 yard hitch routes. And then the goal is get the guy the ball and hopefully they make a guy miss and they get past the line. Last night had several screen passes on 3rd down. It's like 3rd and 5, let's run a screen pass. And of course, if you play the tendency, it's not going to work out well. Miami, very first 3rd down of the season, was like, I believe there's a screen pass coming. Put 8 guys on the line of scrimmage, 1 guy slightly off, and the 8 guys on the line scrimmage tied up all the blockers where the 1 guy slightly off came, tackle in the backfield. And so hopefully if we're not predictable on offense and we can force Tennessee to throw. Now, I believe you guys do have a pretty good pass defense, but I also have a decent amount of confidence in Jason Marshall and company that if we can take away at least your bread and butter, that they can keep it doing good enough a job where they can keep it competitive. And you know what it's like if an underdog can keep it competitive for long enough. We saw this weekend in quite a few games, good things do happen.
Yeah, I think you're 100% correct there. Florida, if they are able to stop Tennessee's run game, and I don't even know if stop is the right word in that, because last night Dylan Sampson still rushed for 140 yards, which surprised me when I looked at the box score. But he rushed for 140 yards last night, but that was basically off of 2 possessions. So if you guys can get push on the defensive line throughout the game and just have our offensive line on their skates like they were for the majority of that game last night against Arkansas, then Florida has got a fantastic shot to win. And plus, Skylar mentioned it earlier, just the Florida logo on the helmet for some reason does something to Tennessee to where it's always going to be a close game. The spread right now is 16.5. It was at 20 this past week before the Arkansas
That was
game.
way too high. That was
way too high. 16.5 is too high. I
agree.
I think that and for Tennessee's sake, being a Tennessee fan, I would love to see a Tennessee blowout win, just like we've seen Florida do to Tennessee many times in my lifetime. But I just don't think it's going to happen. That is very unlikely. I think this is going to be a close game, and it's going to make me nervous all the way down to the very end. But yeah, that's absolutely what Florida's got to do is you got to slow down the run game, force Nico to try to beat you with his arm. Last night, he showed that he couldn't do that.
I think to add to that, I think I'm going to continue with this theme. Florida wins if they win first down.
Yeah.
Staying ahead of the chains on offense and also making sure that our offense doesn't stay ahead of the chains. Our offense is going to do it to ourselves, a quarter of the time. I think the first 3 or 4 series against Arkansas, we literally had a false start or some sort of penalty on the very first play of our drive. So we would constantly start out at 1st and 15. So if Florida can win first downs, I think turnover margin is kind of a cliche kind of thing, but seriously, I think it's as simple as winning first downs and limiting possessions for Tennessee, just like Arkansas. Arkansas had such a good game plan, and they executed it so well. If y'all can do that, it doesn't matter how good our defense is, our offense will not be able to score. So,
yep. So, real quick, we got you, Daniel, a fellow member from the Ohio podcast of the College Huddle. He tunes in. Yesterday was crazy, man, and hey, we're glad to have Daniel on. The College Huddle has just been a fantastic thing for all of us that are in the College Huddle. You get to meet all sorts of new people. You get to talk ball with people that you might not have gotten to talk ball with before. We probably would have never met Daniel if it wasn't for the College Huddle here. So it's just a fantastic thing that we're doing, and we're hoping to see it grow just as much over the next year as it has over the last 6 to 8 months.
For sure. And I can tell you, like, on my end, it's been great to meet lots of people like you guys. Hogs on the Hill popped in my head, but definitely like Landon, who unfortunately his podcast, My Dogs Are Barking, has left from Mississippi State to join a local Mississippi network, but he was on with us for a while. I even got to meet up with him in Tuscaloosa after the Mississippi State Florida game. Nice guy. heck, for a while there, Roger from the Knighted Ones podcast and Jesse from Plant the Spear for Florida State, we started our own Florida podcast for a bit. Unfortunately, schedules haven't worked out since the season, but granted, the way Florida State's gone, the way we've gone, and the way it looks like UCF is going, maybe it's for everyone's mental health that schedules haven't lined up first half of the season, because we definitely don't want to put out a bunch of pity parties. But at the same time, it's been nice to have college huddle people that we can message about. I know that there's fun things that go on about, like, even last night, I see everyone talking about how crazy the night was. And here I am saying, well, technically we're Florida, and you talked about how our logo holds weight, and it does. But I'm like, we were 2-point underdogs. Can we claim this as part of our underdog Saturday as well? Even though we should never be underdogs against UCF. But
yeah, especially at home like that. But so Daniel, you want to tell the folks where they can find all of your work?
Oh yes, definitely. You can find me on X at Gator Podcast, and you can find Gator Truth wherever you listen to your podcast, where it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever. But also we're on YouTube at just search Gator Truth Florida Football Podcast. I forget exactly what the ad is. Unfortunately, at Gator Podcast was no longer available. I should have just put it together for synergy, but I did not. So, oh well. But I'll also say, getting at Gator Podcast, when I started the podcast in 2022 on X, I was shocked that had not been taken yet. So, woohoo! Small victory for me. Oh man.
Yeah, and you can also find Daniel and all of our other College Huddle members at thecollegehuddle.com. The Ohio podcast, he's one of the founding members of the College Huddle, and he's the one that sought out us with the Fanatics Show, and as well as Daniel with the Gator Truth Podcast. So you can find all of us there as well. Daniel, we really appreciate you coming on, doing this preview with us, and we can't wait for the game this weekend. You might talk to Skylar some. They've got a tailgate going on the river there for the Vol Navy. If you get a chance, you might can go down there and visit with Skylar up there.
Oh yeah, we'll make it happen.
Oh yeah, I definitely might do that. Will you be joining us down there as well, Michael, or unfortunately got to stay?
No, I work on Saturday, so unfortunately I won't be able to make it. But hopefully sometime soon we'll be able to make something work out.
I understand if I'm not good enough, but it's fine.
Oh no, I will definitely head over your way. I mean, last year I was able to talk my way into at least getting a picture on a cockaboose in Columbia to actually know someone part of the Vol Navy and step into part of that. That'd be awesome. I love college football. One thing I didn't mention was, if you go to, well, currently there's not a College Huddle YouTube page. It's gone back to Big Ten Huddle, but there's still episodes on there of a show I did called Why We Huddle, where we just talked about traditions and what made different schools special. Unfortunately, didn't get quite to Tennessee, and the week I was going to do USC, it went back to Big Ten Huddle, and haven't gotten to get that started yet. But hopefully when the season ends, we'll get back. Maybe I'll get Tennessee on and you can tell me all about the Vol Navy. But for sure, I'll hit you up, because that sounds like an amazing time, and I can drag my mom there, and I know at least she won't be thrown in the river. I can't say I won't be, but I'll use my mom as a shield. Don't throw her in, don't make her see me go down with the goalpost.
Yeah. Well, Daniel, appreciate you coming on with us, man, and good luck this weekend.
All righty. Good luck to you guys. Let's have a good one.
Yep, absolutely, man. So that was Daniel from the Gator Truth Podcast. Skylar, you are kind of breaking out just a little bit now. All right, so Skylar, having some connection issues, going to try to get him back on. While we wait on that, got a few comments to clean up here. We've got Brett Cash. Let's see. We got you back, Skylar.
I think so. I don't know what happened. I think you kicked me out instead of Daniel. What the hell?
Well, it showed that you just went completely out, but you also had some connection issues going on for a minute, but everything seems like it's good now.
All right, right on. My fault.
No, you're good. Real quick before we move on to our predictions, just going to run through some of these comments. So Brett Cash says, need to go back to the two tight end system. If we're gonna focus on the run game, I completely agree with this. Get you an extra blocker in the box there. Focus on the run game that way. And at times I felt like I can trust our tight ends better than our wide receivers. But that interesting thought there. Also got RNCGSU says Nico with one of the worst QBRs in the SEC. What else can you really say? I mean, the stats don't lie with that. I do think that for the most part, whenever he does throw the ball, he's making decent decisions, but he's just holding on to it too long. I mean, there's a lot of improvements that he can make. Let's see, don't have who made this comment because once again, we do still have some Facebook users popping up. Sampson runs for 1,000 yards and Florida runs a 3-down lineman.
This is false. That is absolutely false. If that was the case, he would have done it against Oklahoma, and he would have. Yeah, this is. People don't understand that when you run 3-down linemen, you run 4 linebackers or 4 basically in the second level, and what they do is they just fill gaps. I mean, they do such a good job with it, and it's really 3-down lineman doesn't necessarily mean like obviously it's 3-down lineman, but they kind of plays more. And it is you look at pre-snap and it almost looks like they're running 365 and whatnot, and then they run the play and they're blitzing and so it's just we'll see. But we appreciate all you guys commenting. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we are getting a little bit of connection issues again from you, Skylar. Kind of cut out just a little bit there. All right, so Skylar having some connection issues there. I believe what's probably going to happen here is I'm going to go through the pick segment. He's going to send me his picks for the pick segment here, so we'll still do that. He'll also send an upset pick of the week, so I'll just run through the rest of this at the end here. A couple more comments. It's me says the season is over, and then if Arkansas can do it, anybody can. That's where I disagree, just because Spade TV says Arkansas is a good team. I don't quite know if Arkansas will go 8-4. I haven't looked at the rest of their schedule yet, but Arkansas is a good team this year. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be originally. Sam Pittman is absolutely going to keep his job after this season. Bobby Petrino, that offense has really helped things out. They've got a good defense because Warfare Jordan, says, does Arkansas have an elite defense? I wouldn't say elite yet, but they've got a very good defense. But I mean, the way they played Tennessee last night, it shows that they're at least very good. They held A&M to 21 total points. The one thing I would say is the Oklahoma State game, granted, there was turnovers that the offense had that led to this, but you gave up a lot of points there. We'll see going forward. But right now, I would say Arkansas has a very good defense. They're not elite. And then he also says Travis Williams is brilliant. So thank you all for commenting on this. Keep the comments going as we go through the pick segment here. But before we do that, I'd like to give you our segment 3 sponsor, which is Kaizen Painting. Do you want a colorful life? Kaizen is a painting and drywall company that provides residential, commercial, exterior, and interior services. At Kaizen Painting, we understand the importance of a beautifully painted home and properly installed and repaired drywall. We're here to bring your vision to life. We care about providing you with a personalized, efficient, and quality service. You can contact or if you live in Knoxville and surroundings, you can contact Kaizen Painting for a free estimate at kaizenpainting.com. Color your life the Kaizen way. So let's see. Skylar is supposed to be sending me his picks in. But we're gonna run down the lineup for this weekend in the SEC. You have got South Carolina against Alabama is going to be at 12 Eastern on ABC. You've got Missouri and UMass is going to be at 12 Eastern. That is on ESPN2. Why that one's on ESPN2, I do not know. You've also got the Red River Shootout is going to be this Saturday. That is at 3:30 Eastern on ABC. And at 4:15 Eastern on SEC Network, you've got Georgia against Mississippi State. Then you've got the one that we've been talking about already. You've got Florida and Tennessee is going to be at 7 Eastern on ESPN. Ole Miss is going up against LSU at 7:30 Eastern on ABC, and then Vanderbilt and Kentucky in the nightcap at 7:45 Eastern on the SEC Network. So that is the lineup of games. I believe Skylar is sending me his picks now. Yep, Skylar has got his picks. So, first game of the day on Saturday, it is South Carolina against Alabama. As I mentioned, that is going to be at 12 Eastern on ABC. Skylar says Alabama over South Carolina in this game. And sorry, texting Skylar back real quick. See, he says Alabama over South Carolina in this game, and I also agree with him. Alabama is going to have a big game this weekend against South Carolina after the embarrassing loss to Vanderbilt. South Carolina has got a very good team this year, though, a lot better than I thought that they would be. But unfortunately, they have a difficult schedule. So I think they're going to make this competitive for a little while, but Alabama does come out with a win in this game. Second game, Missouri against UMass, as I mentioned, 12 Eastern on ESPN. Skylar says Missouri gets the win in this one, and I also agree with him. This game is at UMass, by the way. So you got an SEC team going to UMass. I talked to our friend Skeeter from the Woodswater Mizzou podcast a little while back about that. He said it was just something with the athletic department a few years ago, kind of messed some things up there. But yeah, Missouri going to UMass. Both of us have Missouri winning that game. Then at 3:30 Eastern on ABC, the Red River Shootout between Oklahoma and Texas. Skylar says Texas over Oklahoma in this contest, and I believe I'm going to agree with him on this one. Texas is really solid this year. I mean, right now they're the only SEC team that has not lost on the season. Every other SEC team has one loss in conference. So give me Texas as well, but I do think that this is going to be closer than the 14.5 that the spread is sitting at right now. Mississippi State against Georgia. That is at 4:15 Eastern on the SEC Network. Skylar says Georgia. I also say Georgia. Mississippi State is not as good this year as what I originally thought they would be. They've got a lot of issues that they've got to work on under first-year head coach Jeff Lebby. It's going to be a long rest of the season for Mississippi State, so Georgia wins this game big. 7 o'clock Eastern on ESPN. It is Florida and Tennessee. Skylar has got Florida over Tennessee in this contest. I'm going to go with Tennessee in this game, but as I mentioned, when Daniel was on here, this game is going to be very close. It's not going to be 16.5 like the spread is right now, but give me Tennessee in this contest in a bounce back win. Ole Miss against LSU at 7:30 Eastern on ABC. Skylar says LSU in this contest. I am going to go Ole Miss. This is a game where LSU is not quite as good, I don't think, as I originally said they might be going into the season. I think that there's some issues there. They do get this game at home, but Ole Miss, I think, is I think that the wake up game happened in the loss to oh shoot, I done forgot who it was. Ole Miss lost to Kentucky. I'm sorry. I think that they kind of got woken up in that game. They looked better against South Carolina yesterday, did not look great, but I think Ole Miss goes into Baton Rouge and gets a big win to help their season going forward. Last game of the evening, we have got Vanderbilt against Kentucky. This is at 7:45 Eastern on the SEC Network. Skylar says Kentucky. Give me Vanderbilt in this one. This is it's probably a trap game for Vanderbilt because you're coming off the big win against Alabama this past week. You're probably gonna be riding high. Kentucky, I believe, was off this past week, so they are coming off of a bye week. But I just think it's strength against strength in this game and weakness against weakness in this game. Kentucky's defense is very good. Vanderbilt's offense is good as well. Kentucky's offense has not been very strong going up against the Vanderbilt defense that yesterday got a lot of pressure on Milroe, but they have not been great so far this season. So I am going to go Vanderbilt in this contest to win against Kentucky. Upset pick time. We have last week. I will have our updated standings on a graphic next week on the podcast. But last week, both Skylar and I went 3-3 overall. I got an extra point last week for my upset pick covering in the contest as I picked California over Miami, and Miami gets a 1-point win, which means Cal covered the spread. Unfortunately, Skylar's pick did not hit. He picked Baylor over Iowa State. Skylar says his upset pick this week, he's going to double down on it. Florida, Florida plus 16.5 to beat Tennessee this week is his upset pick. And I'm going to double down on Vanderbilt. I have got Vanderbilt plus 12.5 against Kentucky this weekend for my upset pick of the week. So once again, Skylar picks Florida over Tennessee. I pick Vanderbilt over Kentucky for the upset pick of the week. A couple more comments that have come in. This is in regards to Bama against South Carolina. Bama is going to be mad coming in. I completely agree with this. Bama is going to be ready to play in this game, especially after what happened against Vanderbilt yesterday. And one thing I will say is you can also tell that Nick Saban is no longer the head coach at Alabama because at the end, you saw the Alabama player, number 13. He was so frustrated that as soon as the referee spotted the ball for the kneel down, he came up and kicked the ball, gets the unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. That would never happen with Nick Saban at the helm. Nothing against Kalen DeBoer, but Nick Saban just ran a super tight ship. He demanded respect, even whenever you lost. He just demanded that. You would never see an Alabama player under Nick Saban that does that. So a lot of frustrations in Tuscaloosa right now. Big Papa Small Pod, really appreciate you tuning back in again this week. Arkansas's D is legit. That was a great game. So I agree with you. I think Arkansas's D is very good this year. I'm just not to the point where I say they are elite yet. But they are very good. I would disagree as far as the great game goes. It was an ugly game. It was a great battle is what I would say in that one. But it was an ugly game overall. Arkansas really should have won that game by probably 2 or 3 touchdowns. Just based on how they moved the ball throughout the night. I mean, Tennessee ended up getting 2 stops on 4th down. Arkansas missed a field goal. They had numerous opportunities to blow the game open that Tennessee caught breaks on. They just could not take advantage of those breaks in the game. And let me just say, I forget what his name is, but Arkansas's punter is an absolute weapon when it comes to flipping field position. At one point, Tennessee stopped Arkansas somewhere around the 25-yard line, I believe it was, and he punts it all the way down. And I mean, or I guess it was 30-yard line, but he punts it all the way down and gets a touchback off of it. A 64-yard punt, I believe is what they said, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody in the comments correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe it was a 64-yard punt is what it was on that one. It just completely flipped the field. Justin does say hook 'em horns after talking about the Red River shootout this weekend. I believe I'm going to be hooking the horns this weekend too. I think that they will stay undefeated this weekend. I think that their one loss this year will be Georgia whenever they play. That's just my thought on it. So Robert says, based off of our strength of schedule, do the Vols have to go 10-2 to get to the playoffs, or do you think we have a shot if we end at 9-3? So I think the short answer is you have to go 10-2. You have to beat one of Alabama or Georgia to be able to have a shot at the playoffs. But I think it's also going to depend on how the rest of the season goes. If you have just absolute chaos, we had multiple college huddle members that were coming in and saying, or last night we had our group chat going saying, is this 2007 all over again? And if you don't know what happened in 2007, I absolutely encourage you. There's a YouTube video out there that just goes through the entire season of what happened. I mean, you had USF at one point in the season as number 2 in the nation. You had just absolute chaos that entire season. So if we have something like that happen, I think Tennessee's got a shot of making it at 9-3, but it is highly unlikely. So I think Tennessee has to go 10-2. You have to beat one of Alabama or Georgia. If you beat both of them, even if you drop a game somewhere in the rest of the schedule, I think absolutely Tennessee is going to get in if you beat both Alabama and Georgia. But we'll see. But I do think 10-2 is what Tennessee has to go to at least get into the playoffs. And I mean, Skylar said it earlier. It's basically no room for error at this point. You almost have to win out. But yeah, if you drop a game, it's got to be to either Alabama or Georgia, and you've got to beat the other one, in my opinion, to kind of, I won't say guarantee a spot, but to feel really good about a spot in the playoffs this season. And Justin says that Arkansas did leave 17 on the field in that game. So, guys, really appreciate all the interaction today. Really appreciate you watching today. We apologize that Skylar was not able to finish out. Unfortunately, he did say he hit a dead zone out there on the river. So next week, looking to be back on our normal schedule with him in his office. Looking forward to the games this week. It is a massive slate this weekend in college football, not just the SEC. As let me give out some of the marquee matchups that are going on this weekend. Of course, you got Tennessee, Florida, which is being overshadowed by some of these other ones. But you've got the Red River Shootout in Texas and Oklahoma. You've got Ole Miss and LSU. Penn State, USC is still a really good one, although it doesn't look as good as it once did. You've also got Ohio State and Oregon is the big one this weekend. But, I mean, you've got some absolute insane matchups this weekend. It is going to be a fantastic weekend of college football. If you plan a wedding for this weekend or know somebody that did, just give them a big old slap across the side of the head and say, what in the world were you thinking? But appreciate you guys tuning in. Go Big Orange.